Hello, everyone. Hello, this is Dr. Judy WTF with the Freud, and I invite you all to start thinking about the effects of a fragile parent on your psyche. Tonight's show is titled Effects of Fragile Parents on Their Children, and of course, the adults of the adult versions of children, which is when we grow up. So there are many forms of fragility. There's fragility because your parent is mentally ill. Maybe she is bipolar, schizophrenic. Maybe your parent is suffering from severe anxiety or depression. Perhaps your mother is physically ill, or your father. This applies to mothers and fathers, by the way. Maybe your mother or your father is burdened by an illness. Maybe they are unable to function because of heart disease, or because they just cannot walk or help physically help around the house. And this puts an extra burden on children. And that's what tonight's topic is going to be all about. And we're going to start connecting the dots, because we talk a lot about the family structure and how the pillars are supposed to hold us up in order to have a healthy human psyche. And if the pillars are not strong because something is interfering with the strength of the parent, well, then that is going to reverberate down to you. And so please start thinking about how it might be so that you're affected by the fragility of your parents and what kind of position that puts you in to take over and supplement and prop them up and so on. So just a little bit about me. I'm Dr. Judy Rosenberg. I am a clinical psychologist and founder of the Be the Cause mind map system for healing human disconnect. All of you can have a free copy of my book. It is available through PDF for free. And if you want a copy of it, an actual hard copy of it, you can order it from Amazon.com. I also have a beautiful team of people who do mind map therapy. And this mind map therapy is something I'm going to describe and apply to tonight's topic, because fragile parents fit right into this model, and I'll show you how in just a second. Just for you to know, the mind map is something that I created many years ago as a pathway to healing human disconnect. And if you look at the mind map, you will see that it is divided into three parts. The top row being the past, the middle row being the crazy chaos of today, and the last row is where we want to go, the paradigm shift into healing and recoding into health. So starting at the top, there are many wounds of childhood that shadow over us and literally block our ability to manifest the best of our best. These wounds include physical abuse, includes sexual abuse, includes verbal and emotional abuse, includes neglect, includes smothering and controlling. So in the case of a fragile parent, it's usually the case that this parent is very much weakened and turning inward to just cope with their own sense of self, maybe cope with their illness, cope with their mental health, cope with their lack of ability to function properly. So you can see that if you're raised by a mother or father who is not quite able to parent, then they're not there to, I'm going to panel 2 now, they're not able to really always step in and be concerned about your feelings. They may not be able to soothe you, attune to you, play with you, even tuck you in at night and tell you bedtime stories. They may not be able to physically play with you, and that is going to leave you in a position of turning that job over to yourself, which is very, very hard to do, especially when you're an infant And a baby, you don't have the capacity to self-soothe, because self-soothing is something that comes from the outside in. And when a parent does that particular function for the child, then the child will develop neural pathways of human connection. The child will develop an internal sense of a solid, good enough parent, and will have the fortitude, I call it the psychological vitamins, to start building a good, solid sense of self. So by panel 3, if one parent is not functioning properly, it really whacks the family system out of joint. So if you look at panel 3, you see the DNA strand. The pink one stands, let's say, for mom. The blue one stands for dad, or the other secondary caregiver. And together, they're supposed to form a nice structure, a nice support system, where the children are secure on the ladder and they're able to grow and they're able to feel the support system. Now, when one parent is dysfunctional, look what happens. Now we're going to move to panel 4. You could see that ladder starts to fall apart and that everybody's in chaos. So the other parent sometimes gets too much burden on him or her shoulders, and the children sometimes fall apart and get burdened by propping the system up. So a lot of things can happen in this panel called chaos. Lots of things, like, for example, one parent who's bearing the brunt of this system, this fragile system, may resort to defense mechanisms, see panel 5, to prop themselves up and do the double job of double parenting, and they may resort to alcohol or drugs or overeating or checking out or affairs or shopping or anything. We're very creative. Anything goes here. And then what's left of the child here? The child is so desperate for structure and for a parent that's functional that they will sometimes step in and take on the parental role. And I call that parentified child. And I know we have a call-in. So hello, you are on the couch with Dr. Judy.
Hello.
Hi, are you there? Nice to have you call
Hi,
in.
Dr. Judy.
Hi, who's calling, please?
My name is Lee. I'm calling from Washington, D.C.
Okay, nice to talk to you. So what brings you to this topic?
I've been following for a while, and it's very helpful.
Thank
So
you.
my only experience is that I have very narcissistic parents,
Okay.
both of them.
Okay.
They have very fragile self.
Yes.
So it's not just they're not parenting me, and it's not just that I'm parenting them. I was parenting them, but they actually. What I realize is that they actually like to make me go crazy, and that somehow soothes them.
Okay, so this is another level of fragile parenting, right? Now we're talking about the narcissistic parent, which is a huge topic of concern amongst the human race, because so many people are being raised by parents who themselves have been injured, themselves have a fragile sense of self, and then the fragile sense of self has a lot of defense mechanisms. So go ahead. How do they make you feel crazy?
They say all kinds of things to provoke me.
Okay.
I mean, I would take responsibility for, participating in that too.
Okay.
But they say very provoking things.
Like
and
what?
The
Like
the
what?
moment that
Like what?
Constantly bring up the fact that I'm a 30-some-year-old single woman who doesn't have children, which is a very they know this annoys me, and this is their anxiety, basically. It's their anxiety. They worry about it. They don't have grandchildren. They feel like they lose face in front of their friends.
Okay. And what
all their
culture?
friends have grandchildren.
What culture are you?
I'm from China.
Okay. And I think that there's
It's very
also,
conservative and traditional.
okay, I think there's an additional cultural layer there where your culture expects certain things. There are rules and roles of the culture. If you don't fulfill those rules and roles, then you're not okay. And
Exactly.
okay, so let's go back to
Yeah.
the fragile parent and narcissism is really what you're talking about. And so we're talking about a core of fragility of the parent, and now instead of the parent dealing with their own vulnerability, what is the defense mechanism? I'm going to go to panel 5. What's their defense mechanism is they lash out at you, correct?
Right.
They put
Yeah,
you
their own
down.
insecurity and their own shame.
Yes,
Yeah, there's a lot of shame shedding.
yes, okay. And if you look at panel number 6, that's going to clash and crash you and start breaking you down, correct?
Exactly, exactly. So right now I have this very big problem, and they're both dying, like physically.
Okay.
But they're so toxic. I don't want to get anywhere close to them. But
Okay.
I'm the only child,
That's
and they don't
tough.
have anyone else to take care of them. But
Okay.
they are extremely toxic that, it's hard to breathe for me just to be around them. There's a
Yeah.
huge dynamic. On the one hand, I have to bear the guilt. On the other hand, I'm kind of seeing them drowning in the water while standing on the bank just to save myself.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
such a sad situation because as human beings, we want to be decent. We want to do the right thing. We also want to spare ourselves. The analogy you use is an analogy I also use, where let's say you're in a boat, right? Your mother and your father are in the boat with you, and the boat is sinking, and you have to either save your parents or save yourself. And if you try to save your parents, they may be so weak and so sick that they are pulling you down and you don't know what to do. On the other hand, if you let them go, they might drown and you might be safe. But then what do you bear is the shame and the guilt of in your mind participating in the death of your parents. What a horrible predicament for you to be in.
Yeah, and because they're so the self is so fragile,
Yes.
they have this tremendous death anxiety that they don't know how to deal with, and they would like to put that on me. To deal with their death anxiety.
Yes, and because they've been so shelled off from their own feelings, and because they haven't been able to tap into their vulnerability and express themselves to maybe even each other, your mother to your father to your mother, that they act as if they're hard, and they are being hard, and they are projecting, and it's almost like they're vomiting their pain on you. And that's why you're feeling so crazy, because mixed with the guilt of being the only child, and what are you supposed to do for these people? So look, if you take a look at panel number 3, and now your mother's falling apart, the pink ribbon and the blue ribbon is your father's falling apart, and somehow they're giving you a message: hold it together, hold it together. Who's going to get sick from holding it together?
Well, I am.
You are.
And
So,
I am doing the no contact with them right now for a few months already.
okay.
But it is very, I don't even know how sick they are, but I can imagine they are really sick.
Are they in a home? Where are they physically?
They are in a home. They're in a home. So one is completely disabled. The other one, is my mom. She can still take care of him on a very basic level, but I don't
Okay.
know, the details of what they're doing.
Okay. Yeah, this is such an unfortunate situation because if they had a healthier sense of self, then they would be able to appreciate the love and support, and then you would be incentivized to give the love and support. But they're just like hurt animals, so they're lashing out and biting and scratching and demeaning and devaluing, and so you need to get away. And so can you empathize with yourself that you need to stay away from this toxic situation? I think you can because you've already established a no contact.
Yeah, yeah, but it's yeah. At the same time, the guilt is kind of overwhelming too.
Okay, so let's deal with that because, as I tell many of my patients, sometimes you have to do what you think is being a good person. And the trick is, how do you be the good person that you want to be without harming yourself? Okay? So they're in a
Mm-hmm.
home, they're not out on the street, correct? So they're getting meals, they're getting attention of some sort, they're getting care of some sort. Your mother's able to take care of your father. Who's paying for all of this?
They are paying. They are financially stable, so they're okay financially.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that the burden isn't falling on them. So let's put a little mini plan together of how you can feel like you're being the minimum requirement decent daughter that you want to be, and still not get embroiled in their making you crazy and sick. So give me some ideas of how you can do that.
Um, well, sometimes I don't know if it's because, okay, so I guess I have this one question I really want to answer from you.
Sure.
I know a lot of people do no contact
Yeah.
to protect themselves, so they have space for healing and growth and all of that.
Yes.
But I don't know, like, how do you differentiate the no contact versus emotionally cut off? Meaning killing them off, like you're indifferent to them.
Well,
Yeah,
there
it's
are different levels of abuse. I mean, I've heard it all in my therapy room, and it just depends if a parent is so toxic and destructive and emotionally violent or physically or sexually violent, or if they're so neglectful. I guess what obviously happens is that they kill any kind of empathy that you might have for them. Okay, so
exactly.
that's understandable. And then on the, you can look at it from any angle that you want. I remember there was a movie in high school called, I had to watch it in high school, called The Walls of Rashomon, and it was about a murder scene. And every time you looked at that scene from a different angle, it looked different. Okay? So if you look at it with this camera, it looks like this one killed that one. If you look at it like that way, then it looked like something else, and that way something else. So you see, it's like a kaleidoscope, right? So we can look through the lens of the kaleidoscope of what horrible people they are, and yes, they are acting in a horrible manner. On the other extreme, we can look at it like they're really hurt people. We could look at that. Now we could also say, okay, even though they're hurt people, they have no right to hurt you. I think that's ethically fair, correct?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
just because
Yeah.
somebody's hurting, it doesn't give them the right to stab somebody else with their pain. It just doesn't. They don't get that right. Okay, so then you're living with your guilt. You're living with your shame, and so what are you gonna do to help you not feel that way? So I have a couple of ideas, and let's run through them and tell me what you think of them. So
Sure.
okay, so I'm thinking maybe not full no contact, but maybe something where you let them know that you wish them well, even if you don't wish them a
Mm-hmm.
lot of well. Maybe just at least flowers for Mother's Day. okay, or a card, or having the caregivers at the nursing home buy them a special food that you gift them, or something where you're not getting entangled with them. You see, it's kind of like like a sanitary way of doing it, and it's really more for you because you're feeling maybe some kind of something because they're your parents, and whatever that means to you, you're feeling that you'd like to do something and at the same time not hurt yourself. What do you think of that idea for you? How would that work, it or not, for you?
I think that'd be okay. Yeah, it's just what if I have that very minimal contact with them. It's let's say just text messages. It can still be very it can still drag me down if just by receiving one or two text messages.
Okay,
from them.
so then
That
you've got, okay, so this is where you have to firearm yourself. So maybe the flow would be just simply from you to them, and all they're allowed to do is communicate through the caregiver, thank you, or got your flowers, or whatever. So if it opens up a pathway to abuse you, put you down in any way, draw you back into some kind of an emotionally poisonous trap, no. No. Okay.
okay. Yeah, I think the biggest weapon is guilt tripping
Okay, so
because I'm already guilt. I already feel guilty, so
okay.
they already have the hook on me.
Okay, so here's what I want you to do. It's not what they're going to do or not going to do. It's what you think is do the right thing for you, and then that's it. And then you don't let the flow come back to you. You're being the cause. You're being the one, if you want to, saying happy birthday. You're the one who's giving the flowers for Mother's Day or the chocolate for Father's Day. You're the one, and you want nothing back. And if they make a nasty comment, then you throw it in the garbage can. And then you do whatever you want to do to be the right person for you. Anything from nothing to something. Okay, do you see what I'm
Yeah,
getting
that sounds
at?
great. Yeah.
Okay, it's not about what they do with what you do, it's what you do. And then let it go.
Well, yeah, I have the last question.
Yes,
So
please.
I think you talk about talk about the importance of grieving for the loss of the ideal good enough parents.
Yes,
And the thing is, I don't know how much more I can cry about it
yes,
because I always cry about it and cry about it since I was a child. So I
yes.
don't know where I'm stuck. It seems like no matter how much I cry, the grieving is never done.
Okay,
It's endless.
so what I want you to do is at some point you give yourself the message of it is what it is. I think there's a form of therapy called radical acceptance therapy. I know I took a course in it. I don't remember much about it. The concept is you radically accept that they're not going to change. You radically accept that they're never going to be the parents. You radically accept that they're internally damaged and not strong. You radically accept that. And then you stop expecting it to be different. You just stop. And you acknowledge how sad that I didn't get the parents that I wished I could have had. How sad that my parents are weak. How sad that my parents project. And then you follow it with, it is what it is. And then you go back to yourself and say, I need better role models, and I need people who are caring, and I need people who are going to mirror me and attune to me, and I need people who appreciate me. And then you seek those people out because we don't always get those people in our family. You see, that's why we're lucky that when we're adults, we can meet new people and make new families and invite people who are kind to us to be in our life. And then you start painting your own picture.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
And it's a bitter a pill to swallow. But in some areas of life, we all have to swallow a bitter pill. We either have to swallow lots of bitter pills, like somebody died. Wow, what a bitter pill to swallow. Or a tragedy happened. Or we lost a part of our functioning of our body. Or we some kind of a something happened. Nobody comes out of life unscarred, unscathed. It's impossible. And these bitter pills, I just came back from the funeral of my great aunt who was 97 years old, and she was the last member really of that generation. And she really wanted to die. She wanted to escape her body, and the rabbi, because I happen to be Jewish and she's an Orthodox Jew, was an Orthodox Jew, the rabbi was talking about Shiva, which is 7 days of mourning the dead, and how important it is to have family members and loved ones surround you and support you during the time of your loss, so that you could talk about it and that you could share the stories and you can share the pain and how important that is. And so somehow maybe borrowing from the idea of grief is to find your grief group, so to speak, and your support system, and start sharing those feelings and your anger and your pain and the bad and the good of it, and allow yourself to process the emotions so that you don't feel isolated. Because one of the aspects of a fragile parent is the child will feel burdened, child will feel isolated, a child will feel guilty that they don't do enough for the parents. So there's a lot of things that go wrong with this system. Okay, and maybe the last step is for you to give yourself that support group so you could be heard by other people that care about you and empathize with you, which is something your parents could never do. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you so
much. Yeah, actually, I just thought about something. I don't know if you have time to go through one more process.
You know what? I know I have another call. I'm going to take the other call, but can I please ask you, call the clinic, okay, and request a free consultation. And everybody listening, you're perfectly welcome to call the clinic, contact me. It's easy, Dr. Judy at psychologicalhealingcenter.com or drjudywtf.com, shortcut method, and then we can delve into it or call on another show. But just please understand it's a bitter pill and you need support and grieving about this, okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for calling in. Okay. And other caller, you still there? Okay, hi.
Hi.
Hi, what's
Hi,
your...
Dr. Judy.
Hi, who am I speaking to, please?
I've called in before. My name is Maura, and I'm calling from Oregon.
Okay, nice to talk to you. Maura, M-O-R-A?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back on the show, and tell me a little bit about how you relate to the topic of fragile parents.
Well, I actually was calling in relation to the prior caller.
Okay.
I'm very confused. I understand. I can conceptualize. I can intellectualize how my mother, narcissistic mother, is vulnerable.
Yes.
And fragile.
Yes.
And at the same time, it's really hard when I look at her because of the career she's had. She's been in a lot of positions of power, and she's got all the wealth and the outward appearance of
right.
success. And so it's really hard for me, right? So to wrap my head around the fact that she's actually really fragile.
Yeah, and that's confusing.
It is confusing. So what I wanted to say, though, is for your caller before, you two were talking about grieving.
Yes.
And that caller the ideal thing would be for her to grieve. And I propose that it's really impossible to do if she's living in cognitive dissonance every single minute of every day as she
one side of her says to herself, I never want to talk to these people again. They're really dangerous for me and my health and my sanity. The best thing is to stay far away from them.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, she's letting the cultural trappings dictate to her that she should be doing something for them. And
I agree with you. It's a great point.
Yeah, and so she's in a beautiful position that she has parents that are dying and they're financially secure and they don't need anything from her.
Yes, but they do,
So,
because they need to project on
what?
her. That's what they need. They
well,
need
yeah.
to guilt and shame and
like
bring her
need
down.
For survival.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Okay.
Because
no,
I just think they didn't care about any of her needs beyond feeding her potentially and giving her clothing and housing. So the thing that I came to, because I'm going through it, I'm just a little further along the process.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that helped me get through and actually grieve was I had to make the decision that I couldn't be in that ambivalence all the time of yes and no, and I want to, and I don't want to, but I'm going to, and I really don't want to. I mean,
I think that's such
an
an excellent point, and that's why I hope you heard this part. What I said to her was, whatever you think you need to do for them that will make you feel like you're a decent human being. Anything from nothing at all to something.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's where you make your peace, that it has nothing to do with what they're going to do, because as I say to people, it's not what other people do to you, it's what you do with what they do to you. Do you understand? And
right.
So that's where you have the power and control. And somehow you've figured out that you can't be tug of war. Yes, no, I'm bad, and I owe them, but no, I don't want to. And you make this tug of war, and then you don't heal, right? Because you're 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And I think you really did think about it and figure it out. So there's got to be a kind of a place where you arrive, some peace point where you say,
well, I hope someday. It's still difficult, but for example, my mother will send me, she had her birthday, her 73rd birthday in the end of last year.
Yeah.
And 3 days before, I'm a no contact, and she still once in a while tries to get me back. And she sends me an email saying, I'm 73 now, which was untrue because she had 3 more days to go. And then she puts in the email a sentence next to it. Now, the presumption that she's going on is what I would historically do, which was connect everything and look at it as one big story. Mm-hmm. I've learned the way she communicates is very clinical. And the second sentence, which is, many of my friends are getting sick and with bad illnesses and dying and getting dementia.
Yeah.
Now, she's hoping I'm going to feel the pity's going to well up in me, and I'm going to go, oh, my poor 73-year-old mother, her friends are dying. That means she's going to. I have only this little bit of time left. I better do something. It's bait. It's like she's trying to figure out what it is that's going to get me to respond. And the longer you hold out and the more clinically you can look at it and step back from it, the easier it gets to see how childlike it is, the attempt to just see what they can do to get you to perform the way that you're not doing anymore.
Okay,
so,
as you know,
anyway.
Love is earned, okay? And parents are never going to be perfect. Parents make all kinds of mistakes, and if a parent is willing to own their own stuff, and if at age 97 point something % old, right? If she somehow has had therapy and has come around full circle, and this is the fantasy come true, and she says, daughter, I wanna own my own stuff with you, and I realize why you're disconnected from me and how this all went down, and I just want to take the time to in front of you self-reflect and self-correct so that you understand that I've grown, and I want to make this up to you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty funny.
Have you ever actually had anyone whose narcissistic mother or father did this?
I'm making a funny face for those of you who are listening on the podcast. It's very rare. have I had anybody do this. Maybe they might do it if they know enough information. I don't know if they're truly that hardened, because you see, a narcissistic defense is just that. It's a defense. And the only way anyone is going to own their own stuff is if they go behind the curtain to their childhood wounds, reprocess their own pain, which means going deep, deep, deep into very, very uncomfortable places. And for a person who has worked all their life to defend that and fortress it, it's going to be really hard for them to do it. And only then, when they can have the realization of the pain that was inflicted on them, and realize that they're doing a what the Freud and repeating the pattern, and that they've hardened their heart, and then they can grieve the false self that they built and take it down. You know, that's a big job. Do you see? It's a big job.
Yeah.
Okay. And
yeah, I'm on the B. I'm a cluster B myself, so I know exactly how much hard work it is to do that. I'm not as hard as it would be for a full-blown narcissist, but sure. I know the exhausting work it takes and how hard it is to eat crow and face yourself and do, it's painful, and it's never ending potentially.
So, you know, short of your mother having some sort of an aha experience and taking the journey within and busting down her walls and tapping into her own vulnerability, I don't think that she would have the empathy to do that. She might be able to say the right words, which is something, I suppose, but, you know, healing human disconnect. What's the opposite of apathy is empathy. And what's narcissism about? It's apathy. And apathy is a disconnect. And empathy is the opposite. And so she just doesn't have the ability to, you know, to connect and to feel and to have that feeling of, wow, I hurt my daughter. Wow, I really did that. That pains me that I hurt my daughter. So all she knows how to do at this point is say, you know, daughter, I'm about to turn 73 and all my friends are dying, and aren't you going to miss me? And aren't you going to feel bad that you kicked me to the curb? And you're thinking, wait a minute here. And if you don't mind maybe sharing 1 or 2 or 3 of your childhood wounds, panel 1 wounds. What did she do to, quote, deserve the disconnect?
My mother?
Yeah.
Well, all of them. So
all of them.
She chose to marry men that would abuse me for her.
Okay.
And they would, you know, there was sexual abuse. There was verbal abuse from both. There's emotional abuse from everybody. There's smothering. There's, I don't know, what else is there? Abandonment. Yeah, she was gone from 6:30 in the morning until 8 at night, and there was either a housekeeper or someone, you know, or the husband there, and there was no escape and no witness. So, and then he was doing all sorts of, you know, physical abuse and stuff like that. So, you know, he was the most. He was like, he did the work for her, and she just was indifferent, and enjoyed watching it happen because she's so angry at me.
Okay, so I do
and I
remember.
had the golden child, older sister.
I do remember. I do remember some of that which you shared. I think it was on another show. Yeah, you shared some of that. Okay, so look, you know the concept of critical mass. It's just critical mass where, you know, you do something, and it just tips the whole thing over, and then there's no going back. There's just no going back.
Yeah.
And I think that scale got tipped over for you and many of you who are listening. It's just, even if they did do whatever, it's a little too little and a little too late, and the damage has been done. And so that's why there are a lot of people that grow old and their children, unfortunately, kick them to the curb. And I think that's the price that they pay. And it's really, really sad because they may not even connect the dots. They may be literally standing there scratching their head going like, why aren't you calling? You're 72 2 and some odd year, Mom, I might be dead next year. And you might be thinking, well, if you die, you die. And not to make this sound like the person feeling that is a complete unempathic soul, but sometimes parents kill the love in their children. They just do.
I suggest that every person that's been abused by these people get a little angry for themselves and stand up for themselves a little and have a little indignation for what's been done. And just take 100%. A look and say, what other person would you ever accept this kind of treatment?
None.
Okay, when you're a kid, you're stuck. But now that you're an adult, really, why would you waste your time and your energy and your emotional health and your physical health on these people? Okay, you're done. You're out. You escaped finally. So be happy and let them now enjoy living the life that's the result of their actions.
And I think they
paved the way to their future by what they did.
And I think that's a very valid stance. And a lot of people write to me. I get tons of little comments like, Dr. Judy, why are you condoning this? I'm not condoning this. It's just that there are a lot of people that don't know how to live with themselves if they don't say Happy Mother's Day or Happy Birthday. And then they just do it for themselves. Everybody swallows this in a different way. And so I believe what you said is very therapeutic, which is indignation is a pathway to healing. That's why in panel 6 of the mind map therapy, the therapists on staff, including me, have to help people get the poison out and rise up their indignation and express, because if they don't, then they end up imploding or exploding, as opposed to expressing the pain and then closing the file. It sounds like you're more at peace with yourself. You don't have the level of cognitive dissonance that some people have. So you're able to say not easily, but I'm sure with more ease, just to say, hey, look, this is what went down, and I don't want to have anything to do with these people. And if anybody else on the planet did this to me, I'd probably call the police and lock them in jail. Happens that they were my parents, and so I never want to see them again. That's a legitimate stance to take.
Well, it's not easy, and it really, I am that well of anger you talk about. I don't know. I'm only beginning to tap it and let it out. And so I don't know if it'll ever end. But the one thing I did recognize I almost view it as like I've been a survivor as an animal, like a human animal, all of my life.
Yeah.
And I have this fabulous sense of survival now, and I recognize that I'm 49. Mm-hmm. So it took me losing my mind, my health, everything I own, multiple times. I woke up at 48 is when I started cluing into, like, the shift started to happen. So everybody that's listening, don't be defeated if you're in your 30s and you're feeling this, or you're getting aware. Be grateful that you get it that early, because
absolutely, some people never.
You have time left to have a happy life and not let this stuff drag you down anymore. Because if you can figure it out and get over it, it's and I'm not there, but I mean, at least I think I'm going there. Okay. I think it's a great difference in terms of quality of life and finding some happiness, joy, peace, and identity.
I'm just reading
and less
quote.
Anxiety and less depression.
I'm just reading a quote here that a child, having a mentally ill parent, I'll substitute it also with a narcissistically defended parent, can lead to social rejection, social issues, dissolution of the family, and the child may not be aware that the parent is the cause. They may not be aware because they may be wearing nice clothes and living in a nice house and going to a nice school and on and on and on. It's just that the huge missing is that empathy, and the huge wounds are the lack of the parent's ability to feel. Because when you don't feel for your child, anything goes. If you're numb inside, then, if a person is numb, they hurt you, they don't feel the pain. So what would prevent them from beating you, raping you, neglecting you, verbally abusing you? What would prevent them? Because a person who's intact would feel the pain of another person, and that would be part of the relationship orientation of that human being. Without that, it's anywhere from whatever level of narcissism way into sociopathy, where you can kill somebody and you don't feel the pain. So what? So I killed somebody. Well, their problem, not mine. Actually, sadistic.
Right. Actually, it's a relief because they were a pain. I was tired of dealing with them anyway.
Right.
Honestly.
Right.
Because we're just sort of tools, or I'm like a toaster oven to my mother. If I don't perform, she'll flick the button a bunch of times, check the plug maybe, and then she's going to throw it out and she's going to go buy a new one. So, if I'm not performing, then she doesn't understand. It's not like, this toaster oven, I really love it. I think I'll take it and get it repaired because it really has worked forever.
I just want to get this out for the audience on the topic of an emotionally fragile parent, whether their inner core is fragile or their body is fragile. Sometimes what happens is the child becomes parentified. The child is groomed to be a people pleaser and serve the parent and get their pillow and get their medicine and make them feel better and tuck them in and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, the child doesn't get to live out their childhood. The child feels guilty that they're not even able to, quote, cure or help their parents. The child feels indebted to serve the parent. And then at the end of that era, the parent might even turn around and say, you know what? And you forgot to get me my favorite food. So what I'm saying is that even though the child may try to serve and serve and serve, sometimes it's just this, the hole in the soul. It's just never enough. Mm-hmm. And so it's depleting. It's the vampiring effect. If you look at my panel number 7, which is a panel that's supposed to, in an ideal world, mean interconnection, where you're pairing with other people who are more or less healthy, and your health and their health come together and bring more light and more to the world. What happens with fragile parents, narcissistic parents, parents who are unable to give and who haven't maybe even separated and individuated and are codependent? What happens if they're so fragile that when you bond to those people, and of course the child and the mother, the child is always trying to bond to the mother because that's their source of love. But what happens is that the love is now vampired, and instead of the love flowing from mom or dad to the child is flowing the love to the parent, and it's a bad investment. And that's why I call it the vampiring effect, because they're always sucking the child dry. And what happens is the parent doesn't really grow, and the child gets sicker and weaker. So it's just not a win. It's a lose-lose proposition.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, for those of you out there, it's not an easy answer. Should I go no contact, low contact? What about these feelings of ambivalence? And I think ambivalence is one of the hardest human feelings to negotiate, because there's no such thing as I love you completely or I hate you completely, except in very radical situations. But there's always going to be a person that you love, but you hate something about that person, or somebody that you hate, but you have some good memories with the person too. So somewhere in there is our human struggle to deal with ambivalence.
It is difficult. And it's
difficult.
Also the thing about these people, like my mother, for example, is I finally figured out this is a puzzle that I'm never going to solve. And you talked about that, like, there was someone that studied groups of people, and they had half of the people with a puzzle, and they let them finish it, and the other half didn't get to finish it, and then they brought them back later, and the people that didn't finish the puzzle before, like, remembered it and had, like, their brain had expended energy. Their unconscious had probably been working on it, like, wanting to solve the puzzle, and there's nothing to solve. You're never gonna. And as you said, it depends upon the scale of what you went through. Mine's extreme, so I have an extreme result.
Yes.
Other people, if it's not sociopathic narcissism, like abusive and like for so long it's like torture, then you may have like this, I'm going to go gray rock, as they call it, or whatever. I'm going to spend some time, but I'm not going to be emotional. There'll be a little bit here and there, whatever. I'm going to send a Mother's Day card.
Yes.
It's just everyone's going to find their own.
Yeah, and
path,
that effect is called the Zeigarnik Effect. And for those people who haven't heard me talk about that or haven't read my book, which you are all welcome to get that PDF free copy. If you don't know how to download it off of my web, I think you sign up to receive notification, and then you can download the book. Just write to me at Dr. Judy at psychologicalhealingcenter.com. I talk about the Zeigarnik Effect, which is that lack of closure. So if you finish the puzzle, file's complete. If you don't finish the puzzle, then the file is still open, and that's the Freudian WTF, the repetition cycle. You're still trying to work it out in your head. So that's what I mean by you have to find your own closure. And sometimes when the abuse has been severe, in a way it's easier to find closure because you could just say, my father was so sociopathic. They were so destructive that there isn't a shadow of doubt in my mind that I need to keep away. And then there are other parents where, some good things have happened, some horrible things have happened, and you see where I'm getting to is this no one definition of it. So that's why it's everyone's personal choice. And my general rule of thumb is put yourself number one. Do not hurt yourself at their expense. And if you feel that you need to do X, Y, Z to be a good person, then do that, but do it for yourself. And don't expect anything to come back to you. And if you're hoping that your parent is now going to have the aha turnaround moment, pretty much forget it. Unless they've done a ton of therapy. Don't hold your breath. Okay?
Okay, thanks, Dr. Judy.
Okay, my pleasure, Maura. Thank you for calling in again.
Have a good night.
Okay, you too. Good night. So you see, fragility comes in so many forms. The fragile parent that is sick has a heart condition, and it's not really their fault, but they might milk it and boss their kids around and have their kids be their slaves and nurses and so on. And then there are parents who are mentally not well, some parents who suffer from mental illness, and they themselves don't know. And sometimes the children themselves, they don't know that this is not normal, so they'll just play along with the family system and glue their parents back because, see, a child will not be okay until the parents are okay. And so they're going to try really hard to make the parents okay so they'll be okay. It's a real system gone wrong. I remember the title of a book called I'm Okay, You're Okay. So I say it this way: Mom and Dad, if you're not okay, I'm not okay. So therefore, I'm going to have to work really hard to fix you, cure you, make you strong, compensate for your fragility so that you can be okay. And then finally, you can be the strong parent and bring it back to me. It doesn't always work that way. So I'm going to go to my Shrink That tune. This is a tune I've shrunk in the past, but I think it's always applicable. It's one of my favorite tunes to shrink. It's called Because of You by Kelly Clarkson. And this is about that rising indignation where you do your damage list of what your parents did to you, and you and psychologically you hold them responsible. And I don't suggest that you do this with your parents because you're not going to get the response that you want. Again, they're not going to be able to hear you and empathize with you. So here are the lyrics. I will not make the same mistakes that you did. I will not let myself cause my heart so much misery. I will not break the way you did. You fell so hard. I've learned the hard way to never let it get that far. So here's a child basically saying, I'm not going to do the multi-generational mistakes. And I've learned the hard way. And so I will not break the way you did. So they're thinking, I'm not going to be fragile like you. Because of you, I never stray too far from the sidewalk. Because of you, I learned to play on the safe side so I don't get hurt. So this particular person, in this case, I guess it's Kelly Clarkson, saying that because of you, she doesn't feel safe. So she feels that she's got to stay on the safe side a little bit more, codependent on her mom. I learned to play on the safe side so I don't get hurt. Apparently her world was not very safe. I find it hard to trust not only me, but everyone around me, and that's because of you. So I'm looking at it because of you, Mom. Because I know that's weakness in your eyes, I'm forced to fake a smile, a laugh every day of my life. That means, from the point of view of the mind map, because of Mom and Dad, the child is forced to build a fake self and people please. My heart can't possibly break when it wasn't even whole to start with. So here's this very insightful observation that they didn't get enough of the psychological nutrients. They weren't whole to begin with. Because of you, it repeats, I never strayed too far from the sidewalk. So they've been weakened and now they're dependent. And they play it safe and find it hard to trust. And because of you, I'm afraid. So when parents injure you, then they cause you to weaken, to be dependent, to be afraid in the world. And so through the journey of the mind map, you learn how to take out the psychological poison, close these emotional files, and clear the slate so that you can reboot the system and paradigm shift out of the mess of the past and the pain of the past. So please be free to consult for a free consultation, get a copy of the book, and I do a lot of blogs and posts, so go grab those off of my website. There will be a blog on this subject in the next few days. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. Good night, everybody.